Friends, last year your dollar lost a ton of value. Inflation rose by almost 7% in just 1 month toward the end of the year. And that means in 30 days, your dollar became 93 cents. Inflation is a silent killer. It is a hidden tax that is felt by everyone. And this administration, yes, the Resident's Day, is only making it worse. Inflation is not slowing down, it's escalating quickly. So gold provides a hedge against inflation and can protect your family's wealth. Legacy Precious Metals is the company that I trust for investing in gold and silver, and they also do a lot of other investments like cryptocurrency. You need to diversify your portfolio. So you have to take this seriously, friends. Oil prices are rising. We've seen supply chain issues, and all of this is going to compound our inflation problems. You can trust Legacy Precious Metals because they give you unbiased counsel that is based off of your personal situation. So you can speak to an IRA expert at Legacy Precious Metals at 866-528-1903 or download the free investor's guide at legacypminvestments.com. That's legacypminvestments.com, or call them at 866-528-1903.
As a constitutional law attorney, former senior legal advisor, and personal counsel to President Donald J. Trump, Jenna Ellis believes in the rule of law and the importance of integrity in our elections. And she's ready to tackle the big cultural and legal issues facing America. This is the Jenna Ellis Show. Here is your host, Jenna Ellis.
All right, friends, and welcome to another episode of the Jenna Ellis Show. I'm Jenna Ellis, and so excited to have my good friend and someone I've endorsed who is a champion for freedom in Texas, Attorney General Ken Paxton, back with me today, who is facing a runoff for Attorney General for the race there in the state of Texas. This is a critically important race, and you have to understand, people who are listening in Texas, why the Attorney General position is so important and why Ken Paxton has been the man for the job for his last term, and why he needs to continue on in this position. So Ken, thanks so much for joining me today. How is it looking there for the runoff?
Well, thanks, Jenna, for having me on. It's looking good. We just obviously had the election on Tuesday. There were 4 people in the race. Actually, I was looking good until they added a 4th person to draw conservative votes away from me. But that's the way it is. They figured out how to do that. So May 24th is the runoff. I think early voting would start the week before. But it's a race against George P. Bush. He's been land commissioner during the same period of time that I have been Attorney General. Since he has very little legal background, I was a little bit surprised that he chose to run for Attorney General, given his lack of legal experience. And then, of course, his running of the land office has not gone well when you consider what he tried to do to the Alamo, which is literally almost destroy it. And then his operation in general related to the hurricane and providing funds to Harris County did not go well either. So he doesn't have a lot of history of doing things well, but he apparently thought he could do this job.
Yeah, well, it's another Bush from Texas. And, my view of this whole race is that this is the establishment wanting to simply kick you out of the AG's office because you're doing such a great job actually on the issues and preserving and protecting liberty and freedom. You have been a champion, not just for election integrity, but, for the latest thing that we talked about just last week on this show, which is your opinion on children and protecting them against this whole, ridiculous chemical castration and transition from, in the midst of this transgender movement. There are so many different things that you have been a champion for truth, for liberty, for freedom, for conservatism. And so, this is just a target, I think, that is on your back from the establishment GOP. And all of the people who absolutely hate the rhinos in Texas need to understand that to make sure that they get out and vote for you and know that this is a critical race. So, as you mentioned, George P. Bush doesn't have any litigation experience. That's kind of critical when you're talking about the Attorney General position. So, what are some things that you have worked on that are going on right now in the state of Texas that are critical to the people of Texas?
Yeah, I think the 3 main things are election integrity, and we fought off this ballot, this idea that they did in Georgia and other states, the other 6 states at least. We fought that off, and we didn't have illegal mail-in ballots in our state, but they certainly tried. And had we not won all 12 lawsuits, we would have been in the same position as these other states. We've also fought in the area of big tech. We have 3 lawsuits against Google right now. We have a lawsuit against Facebook for stealing people's facial geometry. We've just finished a lawsuit with Twitter where we were successful, and we're going to continue investigating them for deplatforming Parler and other people that were on Parler. So the fight against big tech is a huge part of our what we're focused on. And then finally, the Biden administration. We're in over 30 lawsuits with them. We've got 9 on immigration. We fought over the Keystone Pipeline. We just filed one against the ATF for trying to regulate arms. We also have filed a lawsuit related to the federal government trying to initiate action on their part related to this whole transgender issue, which they should have no say in Texas. So it's literally a fight over whether we're going to be free or not, and it's a fight over whether we're going to let the Constitution control this or whether the president gets to determine everything for us as if he were a monarch or a dictator. So that's the fight we're in, and the challenge for Texas is we have to decide whether we want someone that has experience doing this job or we want to elect a rookie who did not do a good job in the land office to come in and do the AG position with little or no legal experience.
Yeah, and these are incredibly important issues. And as everything is going on in Ukraine, and the mainstream media is so focused just on what's going on abroad and overseas, we can't let that take away our focus from what's happening right here at home domestically. And I think you're absolutely right that the Biden administration is looking at trying to crack down on red states, take away freedom and liberty, and it takes people like you, Ken Paxton, who are using your elected office in the way that you should and in the way that it was meant for, to stand up for the people of Texas in your state and make sure to litigate these issues. I mean, when we're talking about election integrity and big tech, I mean, those are 2 of the biggest issues that conservatives all across the country, all of my listeners, are saying, what's going on, what's being done about these issues? Well, right here, this is the opportunity that if people want to genuinely affect change in these areas, if you're in Texas, you need to get out and vote, because the best way that you can make sure that Texas will continue to keep fighting is to make sure to reelect Ken Paxton. And so again, your primary is coming up in May. How can people get involved? And obviously, besides voting, donating to your campaign, is it crucial to get people out, in precincts? This is a primary. What's the most important ways that people can get involved and support you?
Yeah, obviously, it takes a lot of money to run in Texas just because we're a big state of almost 29 million people. But I think in a runoff, you're talking about a much lower voter turnout than even a primary, which typically draws about 10% of the voting population. A runoff generally is much less than that. So word of mouth and getting your friends out to vote in May 24th, and we'll also have early voting, is really critical to me. So it's easy to take it for granted, since I ended up with 43% of the vote and he ended up with 22, to assume that we're going to win. The reality is we all start at 0. There's no difference between him and me right now, even though we almost doubled him in our vote. So I just would really encourage people to keep this on the radar. It's easy to forget about because it's so far out. It's 79 days away, but it's important because I truly believe that Texas has to have somebody in this position that's willing to take the risks, willing to do the fight. And my opponent has no history. He has a lot of rhetoric about the border and the things he's polling on, but he has no actual performance that tells us anything about whether he'd actually do this the right way. All we have is his job in the land office, and as I said, that did not go well for the people of Texas.
Yeah, and there's even a video that, for people who follow me on social media, of when they were asking, speaking of election integrity, whether Biden won fair and square. We have this really clownish video of George P. Bush, and he's raising his hand, and he looks like a total doofus, and that's actually where his heart lies. I mean, that's where he is, not going to fight for election integrity. We know that he has not stood up in even any of the rhetoric, much less on the front lines, like you did, Ken. And that's where also I think that not only the left, but some of the GOP establishment are targeting you, where President Trump endorsed you. And that is meaningful, especially for all of the MAGA America First patriots across the state of Texas, that President Trump endorsed you, loves your work, believes in everything that you are doing for the people of the state of Texas. And so speaking of election integrity, that's the number one question that I still get is, what is going on with that? I know election integrity it's slow moving, and I think people are really kind of frustrated at this point, but you are making a lot of headway in Texas. There are a lot of other states that are also making headway, but what does it look like right there now on the ground in Texas with election integrity specifically?
So we're in a little bit of a crisis, Jenna. We fought off the whole mail-in ballot scheme that they tried to push on us, and we've been prosecuting voter fraud. I have 800 or 900 cases that we're either prosecuting or we're in the position of investigating them right now. The challenge we have is in December of this last year, our Court of Criminal Appeals, which is our Supreme Court on criminal matters. It's a 9-0 Republican court, and 8-1 after the filing deadline closed down to run against them. They ruled, they struck down a statute from 1951 that the legislature put in place that allowed me to prosecute voter fraud. And the challenge of this is we've asked for a motion to rehear. They've delayed it till after the election, of course, because only one of their guys did get a re-election bid. And because his name is Scott Walker, he just won again. And unfortunately, what that means for us is if we can't get that rehearing decided the right way, there's nowhere to appeal it. And we're in a position of having to go back to the legislature and ask them to repass this law and make this court strike it down again, or give me some type of civil authority. What that means is these local DAs in places like Austin and San Antonio and Harris County, who were elected by George Soros, who were put there by George Soros, when they're all going to know that voter fraud's wide open now, that there's nobody that's going to prosecute it. We're going to lose Texas. We could potentially lose Texas in November. It's that dire, in my opinion, and I'm very likely going to need the legislature to meet and pass statutes to protect the citizens of Texas from voter fraud.
And so, where is Greg Abbott in all this? Because he won his primary, by a substantial margin. Obviously, I didn't endorse him in the primary, and I know, you obviously, as the AG, you serve the people of the state of Texas. But now that it looks like, very likely he will end up being the governor again, hopefully, better than Beto O'Rourke, which is going to run, who's going to run against him in the general. Where is he at in all of this and supporting you in terms of making sure that election integrity is preserved?
So I don't know about this particular issue. It's certainly something that now that the first primary is over, I'm going to ask him about, because I think there's nothing more important than this issue. If we don't protect our elections in Texas, I will predict to you right now, we will lose something important in November. We may lose a lot important in November, but going forward, it won't take them long. They can count votes. They know how many votes they need to steal. And if there's no prosecution, if there's no threat of prosecution in these counties that are controlled by DAs and that supposedly have the authority to prosecute voter fraud, we're in trouble. And we're going to be in trouble very quickly.
Wow. And, this type of thing from the Democrats is just so infuriating to anyone who values our country, and the fact that the right of citizens to elect the people that represent us is a hallmark of American freedom and liberty and a citizen-run government. And now, just earlier this week, Ken Paxton, there was an article that came out that I actually talked about on my show earlier this week that is this dark horse kind of Democrat funding that's trying to disbar over 100 pro-Trump lawyers simply because, and I'm one of them that they named specifically.
I'm also one of them, by the way.
Oh, really? Okay. Did not know. I haven't seen the list yet, but so obviously you've seen this, but I mean, it's so insane that they're saying we're going to target these lawyers simply for mounting challenges for election integrity. What is your response to this?
Oh, look, it's ridiculous. In Texas, I'm elected by the people. I'm a constitutional officer. The fact that the Supreme Court appoints these people indirectly, but appoints these people, if they can take away my license because I filed a certain case, then separation of powers is gone. And it's actually in direct violation of the state bar rules, which says, these are their rules, that if I file an out-of-state lawsuit, and that court doesn't do anything to punish me for that lawsuit, then they have no authority to do anything with my license or any authority to punish me. And yet they're ignoring that. They're ignoring the fact that this is a separation of powers issue. It would be quite ridiculous if I had to go get permission from the state bar on any lawsuit I filed or run it by them to make sure I wasn't violating their particular political views. we wouldn't have an attorney general. It would be really up to the state bar to run the attorney general's office.
Yeah, and that's exactly true for private lawyers as well. I mean, I on behalf of President Trump was in a private capacity, obviously on the campaign, and for him personally, and yet if the state bar thinks that attorneys in a private capacity working on campaign issues flies against their political narrative and their preferred politics, and they allow this type of dark money funded Democrat operative to then say that they can go and attack and take away the livelihood and licensure of their political opposition, then lawyering as we know it is basically gone. I mean, that's the whole intent of the adversarial system, is that people get to have legal representation for their case and for their issues. You have to have attorneys on both sides when you have a meritorious contest. And so this, to me, hopefully it's not going to go anywhere, but just the very fact that you and I and 100 other lawyers are even having to defend this is remarkably absurd. And I hope that the state bars will simply kick this out on face and not actually make us defend this, because
Oh no, Jenna, that's actually how they're going to bring this up during my primary. I guarantee you the timing is no accident. I mean, they timed this to make sure that it came up in my runoff. So it's going to be an issue in my runoff because the Democrats do not want me here. They want George Bush in that position. They want somebody that's going to be ineffective, that doesn't know what he's doing legally, doesn't know how to run his agency, and doesn't have a passion for the issues that we care about, and doesn't even know what they are.
Right. And so everyone who is listening from the state of Texas, I hope this is infuriating you as much as it's infuriating me, because that's what the Democrats are doing, is they are trying purposefully to time this, and then they run out to the mainstream media and they say, oh, look, Ken Paxton has a bar complaint, there's an ethics violation potentially, and they frame this in a way that is completely false light, completely antithetical to anything that is remotely sincere or has any sort of basis in reality, and yet they're trying to use that to try to get him out of office. If you want the Democrat pick, George P. Bush, to be in office, then ignore all of this, stay home, don't vote, whatever. But if you are caring about the truth, if you care about making sure to keep Texas red, to make sure to champion conservative values and the rights of citizens, and also just the people to have their office holders, their constitutional officers, as Ken Paxton said, to be able to do their job, then you have to get out and vote. And you have to make sure that their nasty, ridiculous tactics do not work, and send a very clear message to the Democrats: your dirty games and your political opposition rhetoric will not work, because the people see through that. So Ken, how can people support you and your campaign? I know you said word of mouth. Everybody, get out. If you vote and you get 10 of your friends to vote, that's huge. That needs to be your number one ground game.
No, that's absolutely right. And it's pretty telling that these guys are doing this during my runoff with George Bush. I mean, they didn't wait until I'm running against a Democrat. They want me out now, right? They know that they can get him in. They know they got what they want anyway. So, we're at kenpaxton.com and at kenpaxtontx for Twitter, for Instagram, and Facebook. So if you want to help us, connect with us through those means, and certainly we could use the help that you just suggested, which is, one, we need financial help, but two, we need people to tell their friends, and that's very powerful. If everybody on your show that has a connection to Texas did that, it would make it much more likely that I'd win in May.
Yeah, so if you hear that, everyone, even if you are not a voter in the state of Texas, share this show, share it with your friends, call up all of your friends and family who are in Texas, tell them how important this race is, and that you don't want the Democrat pick, George Bush, to get into office, that you want to make sure that Texas is still going to champion conservative values, and that the Democrats' nasty tactics are not going to work. So, Ken Paxton, I wish you the best, and we'll be following your race. I'll do everything I can to support you as well. So all of my friends and family in Texas already know they're going to get out and vote for you. And so thanks so much for always coming by, and fully support you and everything that you're doing for the state of Texas and for America. Thank you for not backing down. right now, Mike Lindell is having an incredible deal, and he's calling it the sale of the year. So for a limited time, you'll receive 60% off the Giza Dream Sheets that come with a 60-day money-back guarantee and a 10-year warranty. You'll receive a set for as low as $39.99. I have these dream sheets. They're kind of awesome. I still love my slippers though, but you can use the promo code Jenna on all My Pillow product, not just the dream sheets, not just the My Pillow, not just the slippers, not just the robes, but even the towels, everything else. So for a limited time with any purchase, you will receive Mike's soft cover book for free when you use promo code Jenna. I've read his book. I told you, his testimony is so amazing, from crack addict to CEO. It's truly, absolutely a God story. And we all have stories of how God has intervened in our lives and has hopefully compelled us to accept his free gift of salvation and to start on a path of truth and to embrace the truth of who God is and how much he loves us. And, this book is amazing. Mike is amazing how much he's willing to stand firm, not just in the political sphere, but also with Christian truth, the Word of God. And you're going to love this book. So go to mypillow.com, click on the radio listener square, use promo code Jenna. And along with this offer, you will also get deep discounts on all My Pillow products. So go to mypillow.com or call 1-800-564-8475. Use the promo code Jenna. That's Jenna. You know, friends, that I talk a lot about faith, family, and freedom, like today's show. And we all know that the fight is on to preserve those things for America. And that's why I'm asking you to join me in being a member of AMAC, the Association of Mature American Citizens. A subscription to AMAC is only $16 a year, and your membership is not only good for America, it's really good for you too. Because AMAC members receive countless benefits and discounts while also having their values represented in Washington, D.C. So AMAC carries your concerns straight to Capitol Hill with the AMAC Action Advocacy Team, reminding our leaders that we stand for faith, family, and freedom. With 2.3 million other AMAC members nationwide, we can all fight to save the America we love. So join AMAC today by going to amac.us/Ellis. If you've already joined AMAC, make sure to renew your subscription because America needs you. So join today and unite your voice with millions of other freedom-loving Americans. Go to amac.us/ELLIS today and know that you have done something really good for America, and especially today on President's Day.